the inimitable Nielsen pad on the right there with its conifer mohawk, and just to the left more lumps and bumps, crag and tails, Duncarnock, Mount, the Craigie, upon which a cross is placed every Easter, I think, and a sermon. Well, is there a sermon said? Maybe they need me up there. And it's the best place to sermonise from. Yeah, you don't see these farm animals staring into phones, being carried by gas chambers, putting nooses around other animals' necks. And yet these animals, like humans, were once great beasts of the Asian steppe, fierceful oxen, wild animals to be avoided and feared and admired. Now, well, now they're just sitting about, getting fattened up for the kill, waiting for the chop. And I was just thinking that what was I thinking? Well, it's the best thing about coming up into the hills, isn't it? Is that thinking slips away, the body-mind slips off, and suddenly you're in that zone of emptiness, space. Again, at the train station, bike and train equals brain. A gaggle of passengers heading the other way into the city, all staring into their hands. And there's a big difference between staring into space and staring into your hand, as in being fed data in the form of flashing lights, flashing sounds, squiggly little fonts that your eyes have to screw up in order to see. And so the screen itself is the complete opposite of coming up here and staring into space. Or for example, staring out of a bus window or a train window like I did whilst the couple next to me stared into their phones. It's absolutely embarrassing. People incapable of having a conversation now because they have to stare into their hands. And of course it's a fear device, an ignoring device that allows them to ignore the other and placate their own fear of encountering and making contact with the other. But yes, this staring into space enlarges the mind. It gets rid of thinking, and it makes the brain more capacious, so that whenever any ideas or thoughts come into that brain, the brain can consider it and contemplate it in its own time, its own space, because it has that capaciousness. When you're staring into a phone, on the other hand, it's like It's like going into that crusher, the crusher in Star Wars. It gradually gets small. That's your brain, that's your mind. The walls are closing in, the garbage is getting fed into your brain via, you know, the internet. You know, I mean, nature is renewable, it's cleansed, it's clean, it's fresh at every point. The computer's the opposite. It's filthy, it's manky, it's, you know, it's rubbish and trash. So you're in that trash compactor when you're staring into a phone. And that's what happens. Your mind gradually gets more compacted, and more information and data, useless, frivolous, non-essential, gets piled into it until eventually you get crushed. You know, and that crushing is you know, dementia, Alzheimer's, all manner of brain disorders that have arisen in the past 100 years because of industrialism and the privatization of consciousness. You know, and this idea of being carried, you know, all carriage leading to miscarriage, and now staring into computers at every available moment. Which is why man's world is in such a mess, and why nothing is really being done to counter it, because everyone's brain is demented in the Western world, and now the Eastern world are wanting to follow suit. So, because it's exciting to be demented. It's exciting to stare at a fruit machine with 40 flashing colours and all those beeps and noises. And this is the infant. It loves the fruit machine. And if you look at newspapers, the internet, web pages, everything's designed like a fruit machine was designed in the past. And it's all mesmerism. You come up into nature, into space, into this vast nothingness, this wilderness, where you can hear not just yourself, but everything. And there's none of that. There's none of that compacting and crushing of the mind. Quite the opposite. Thinking dissolves, the mind dissolves. There's nothing.